Well, welcome to this session of the Jim Bregman Invites You To program. My name's Rob Riley. I'm here with the other production staff member, Pete Mantell. And without any further ado, we're going to introduce the host of this event, Jim Bregman. Sensei Bregman is a 10th Dan, America's first Olympic medalist in judo, a bronze medal in Tokyo in '64. He was a bronze medalist at the World Championships in '65. He has been Pan American champion, national champion several times, past president of the United States Judo Association. And without any further ado, Sensei Bregman.
Thank you, Rob. It is my great pleasure to introduce my friend who I seem to have known since 1882. That date sticks in my mind, Mr. Rick Celotto. He is indeed a scholar when it comes to international judo refereeing. He's been an IJF referee for 31 years, past chairman of the USJA Referee Committee for 29 years. He's been a member of the United States Judo Association Referee Committee for 41 years. He's a past member of the USA Judo Commission for 28 years, and he is a referee examiner for local, regional, and national referees for 41 years. In my humble opinion, Rick is a scholar of the art of refereeing and has an encyclopedic knowledge of the nuances of refereeing, which as a competitor, I would never have been able to understand. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Celotto.
Thank you very much, Sensei Bregman. I'd like to welcome everybody to this little show, this PowerPoint. Basically, it's going to be a journey through the process of taking the local and regional referee examination, just to give those that are thinking about it an opportunity just to go through how I've seen it over the past 40 years, the process, so that we can, it won't be a shock to you if you get involved with the process. It's going to be geared for that level. We're not going to really get into interpretation things. This is more of what you have to prepare for. We will take some time to look at the written examination, that process, and then the practical examination, the things that evaluators, examiners look for. And so we'll begin. The other thing too is, well, just if you're interested in promotional points, Rob, how is that handled? I think.
If you'd like promotion points, you need to send me your name and I'll send you a participation certificate. I'm going to put my email address in the chat window and you can go from there.
All right, thank you very much. This session will be recorded and will be put up on YouTube, so future people can watch it on YouTube. But if you watch it on YouTube, you will not get promotion points, only if you attend it when it was originally presented. I guess that's the decision from the Board of Examiners.
That's
right,
correct. You have to watch it. You have to be present.
Now we're going to move on to the this is going to be quite quick because I probably have too many slides. I don't want this thing to go too long, but basically we're going through this journey through the process of taking the local and regional examination. The first thing we should do, or you should do, is to read and study the 2020 IGF SOR, which means, what does that mean? The Sport Organization Rules. That's what it means. And Appendix D, it's actually should be referred to as the IGF Refereeing Rules. And that's in the 2020 version, pages 92 to 144. Most of you, if you're new at it, you probably don't have this. But anybody who's been refereeing for a while does have a copy of this. All the website, or the links, I should say, were on the original invitation. There are 3 documents. This one, and then the next one is read and study the judo referee manual, which I wrote. That's a pretty good. It touches base with a lot of things that you should know about the basics of refereeing. Also, I've heard from higher level referees, even national referees, saying that they found that it was of value to improve their own skills even at that level. And so that's also available, and the links again are on the original invitation.
Rick,
Yes.
I in the chat window, I put the links to the complete document, which has all these documents link in it. So
Okay.
if anyone needs these things, it's in the chat window now.
Thank you. Thank
Sorry
you
to
very
interrupt.
much. Yeah, that document also has, besides these 3, it has everything you want to know about the rules for 2020. It has the Doha clinic, the international IJF referee coach clinic in Doha, what I think it was in Qatar, in January of 2020. It's very, very comprehensive of all the different contacts, the IGF contacts, and also some that included. Also, there are 5 videos of the introduction to refereeing, and then I did a 4-part review of the 2020 rules. So it's 4 different YouTube sessions, about from an hour to an hour and a half. So you can go through some of the nitty gritty on that. Next, so we want to get ready to begin to referee. And as I previously said, but I'll repeat it again because sometimes there are new people on. The important thing to remember is begin refereeing before you are certified. In other words, you don't have to be certified to referee. If you go to a tournament and talk to the chief referee or whoever the referee director is for that tournament or that area, they can squeeze you in. They'll initially probably put you on the mat with the little ones, and if you don't look scary, they'll let you continue, and you'll get feedback and so forth. You'll get better. By being at the tournament, you'll get the feeling of the pressure of people looking at you. You'll be out on a big mat. It'll be a real type of environment to train in. It's almost like people don't understand refereeing is just like doing judo. I mean, you can't read a book and expect to be able to do judo. You have to get on the mat and play the game. And the same for refereeing. You got to get on the mat and play the game. We've got to see you in the quote unquote combat environment. And initially, it's not that tough if you're only doing children. The judo is not too technical, but as you get better and better and better, you'll move up and do brown belts and higher level events, stronger judo, and so forth until you move to national, then eventually international if that's your leaning. Start at the dojo during randori as your sensei allows. Most dojos already do this. So when you get to the randori part, though, there's a lot of dojos have someone who may be a national referee, and if someone's interested, then off in the corner when the 2 are doing randori, you can have someone doing refereeing stuff, some new person. Even I've seen clubs with 8, 9-year-olds practicing refereeing. That's fine. Everybody. And the national referee would tell them, oh, you should stand over there. Or, oh, that one was a wazari, not an ipan, blah, blah, blah. And that's the best way to train is in the dojo initially. And then you should try to work it. Once you feel comfortable, then you should work at tournaments. So you get as I said, the realism of it, the pressure, the camaraderie, the refereeing, what goes on at a referee meeting, how the rotation systems work and all that other thing. And this exposes you to the referee ways and the things that happen. That way you don't have to deal with that if you just come in to take an exam cold. You have to deal with too many different new concepts. One other thing is to understand the rotation system, how the referees rotate in and out of refereeing. We have to time this so that they're not on too long and get tired. Their mind gets tired if they're out there too long. You also have to make time and for lunch and so forth, and critiquing and so forth. So that's what you'll learn How to handle feedback. The other thing is, when you come off the mat, if you're in a good environment, or what I call a referee-rich environment, meaning that you actually have maybe a couple of national referees on each mat area, then some of them are very good at providing feedback when you come off the mat, and their goal is to help you to become better. Sometimes some of them are a little harsher than others, and some national referees don't like to get involved. They just want to referee. So you'll find someone you like to get feedback from, and that's the person, we call those people mentors now in the judo refereeing business. So find a mentor and start climbing the ladder. Also, going to the tournament, you get to work with the other referees and know them. Be on time for the referee meetings. This is something, it's just not human nature, but societal norms is, be polite and be on time for things, be there. And we expect is if you're going to be dedicated to doing refereeing, there's some discipline in it. And one of the things is show up on time for the meeting and show up on time for your shifts and do what you're supposed to do. And that it is important. If you show up late for a meeting, not good. Be on time for the referee shifts, as I just said. And then practice. Just like judo, you need to referee on the mat. It's great to read a book, but that'll take care of half the problem. You got to get on the mat and play the game. Also, you can improve. You improve faster by getting qualitative feedback, good feedback, so that if you're making mistakes, someone's telling you you're making mistakes, and then they'll point out how to make it better so that you look good when you try to move up to the different levels. Or if you're not into that, going for local and regional and just want to referee, that's fine too. Just helping out judo in general, being there to help make tournaments run a little smoother so we have more referees. But the judo principle is maximum efficiency, minimum effort, but the other is mutual welfare and benefit, and that's giving back to judo. And then the third one that gets short shrifted is the developing your potential to its fullest. And that's, you do that, you practice judo hard and try to get to gold medal status. Well, maybe most people don't make it, but at least try. Same with refereeing. You continue to practice to reach the highest level you can, and just keep plugging at it. It's part of judo. You should referee, as I mentioned, in real contests to get the feel and the pressure and the authenticity of refereeing a judo contest. Now, when you take a local or regional or even the national level examination, you are expected to be in an official referee uniform and have an official radio. It's a walkie-talkie type thing. So my question is, would you show up to a tournament to compete without a judo gi? Of course not. And referees are expected to show up to tournaments in this uniform. Now, you'll learn, and you probably already know if you've been involved with judo refereeing, that some environments are short on referees. They don't have enough, and they will accept, black belts, even brown belts that are wearing their white judo gi to go on the mat. And in some areas, they've decided to use like polo shirts. They're all wearing the same type of whatever color polo shirt. So they have gray slacks on, which is standard, and then a polo shirt that says referee and whatever. If it's Yudanchikai with your JF, or a state organization with USA Judo or JA, whatever organization you're with, they have this standard polo shirt. Initially, you have to do what you have to do to fill the mats with referees, and hopefully competent referees. All right, getting your referee uniform, very basic. We'll zip right through this. Is basically the pants should be a charcoal gray, which is a darker gray. In my early days, it was more of a lighter gray. Now it seems they're all going for this charcoal gray. White dress shirt, short sleeve or long sleeve. We tell in the U.S. many cases we say go with the short sleeve because if you're in a hot environment, you take your jacket off, it looks better if it's short sleeve rather than have them with the long sleeve rolling it up. It just looks better. But know that at the IJF level, they don't have any distinction like this. Even as I was told, even in tournaments in Egypt and Morocco, all the referees are wearing long sleeve shirts, and it's 100 degrees. So everybody's got a little different opinion on that. You should have a black sports jacket, a blazer. Generally, the 2-button style is preferred versus the 3-button, but the 3-button is fine. You should have a black solid tie. You could have a little logo on it. You should not be wearing like funny ties, striped ties, any of that kind of stuff. It should be black. The only other kind of tie that generally should be worn is that IJF-A, which is international referees, and IJF-B, which is continental referee. Those are the ratings from the international level. They get, when they get certified, they get a nice blue tie. It's like a light blue. It's a medium blue tie. They can wear that to distinguish that they are international referees. Next is black socks. And you think that I'm funny, but we had guys showing up with yellow socks and argyle socks, and it doesn't look good. Also, just if anybody wants to, again, if you have any questions, is to go to the chat and write it down, and then I'll be made aware of the question. If it's complex, then we could open up your mic and discuss it. I don't want you to be confused about anything, and I want you to ask if you have a question, ask it. All questions are good, because if you want to ask it, I'm sure someone else in the room is going to want to know the answer to that. Also, you should have black dress shoes when you're off the mat, and then Zori. A lot of referees don't. They don't bring Zori, but the more seasoned people actually have a little bag they bring with them, and their Zoris or flip-flops are in there, and they just put their shoes under the table and walk around the venue, G.I. Joe, with Zoris on. And then, one of the complaints in the early days was, why do I have to buy a suit? I never wear a suit, but they are good. I mean, you can go to weddings, funerals, parties, whatever. It's a good overall suit to use. Let's move to the next thing is you got to get your radio. Now, initially, if you're brand new, don't worry about it. But if you're going to get local and you're going to continue to work tournaments, you're going to need to get a radio. And the radio of choice right now in the United States is this Baofeng BF888S. It's pretty cheap, actually. It's only, if you go to eBay or Amazon, they can range from between $8 and $20. So if you break, it's not a big deal. It's pretty well built, for my opinion, compared to some of these other brands that Midland, and there's some other brands in the U.S. But let me just stress that if you do buy this off the eBay or Amazon, whoever, I'm not pitching those two, but that's where you find this radio I have. Make sure it has an earphone. Make sure it specifically states that the earphone will be included. Generally, you get the radio and the battery and the back piece, the charger, and where did we go here? And the antenna and so forth. And then you get this earpiece. Now, as you get more time in, there are better earpieces, but this one will do for the start. All right, the examination must take place at a sanctioned tournament. Tournament. This is to ensure that there's real matches, that the atmosphere is correct for the referee environment. You absolutely cannot receive referee certification by attending a clinic. That's one of the things I've seen over all the years, that people think because they attended an hour-long clinic or a 2-hour clinic, they're going to get a certificate for local referee. That can't happen because we haven't seen you do anything. You listen to the the information, but that's almost like saying if you attended a 2-hour clinic where someone talked about judo, and then you'd get your next ranks. You can go from Sandan to Yondan, and well, here's your certificate. Thanks for listening to me. It just, everybody was shaking their heads. It's not possible. Well, the same in refereeing. You have to see you in a combat situation or in a real life situation where two players are fighting, and you're in the middle of it trying to keep it safe and fair. Referee must wear the official uniform and have your radio. And again, some areas do allow the polo shirts, and in cases where you are very short of referees, then players in preferably really white gis would be best. Personally, I'd like to see a very professional environment and everybody in their nice black jackets and gray slacks, but some areas can't do that. You have to use what you have. Must experience the actual tournament, as I've already mentioned. You must feel the throng of the spectators cheering and chanting and clapping and jeering, and the large competition areas, the competitors of all edges, the pressure, the sweat, the anxiety, and the coaches. All of that's an experience that if you are exposed to it long enough, you become comfortable with it. You're not stressed or not as stressed. And now the core principles of the refereeing in general is our first one is safety of the competitors. Very important. 2 is the competitors are number 1. As far as the referee is concerned, referee is just a small part in the process. The players are the number 1 thing that we must be aware of. So please be aware of fairness. The job of the referees must provide an even, equal playing field. That means there's no bias to either player, and they're treated equally. And finally, every match must end with the correct player winning. Very, very important. All right, this is just an overview of the 2020 IGF refereeing rules, the articles. Currently, the items that used to be in the rules that had their own articles was the competition area, a scoreboard layout, the judo-gi rules, the hygiene, and so forth. There's a little blurb on culture and history and principles. And then there are now 21 articles covering the rules. And if you go to the SOR, the latest, the 2020 IGF SOR, you can actually look at the rules and read through them. And there's also some on the combined overview of resources. There's a condensed version of that. Next is the levels of refereeing. Every state, I must stress this, every state in this country is different from local and regional level, before national. Every state, every Yodanchikai, every regional area, they can make up their own rules, just like there are state laws and federal laws. So some states have junior and club, but a lot of states don't. And local, like say the local thing, let's itemize this. Let me go first. There's a national in the black line across. Those rules are all the same throughout the country. And the USA Judo conducts that program. It's their thing. The USJA, the USJF, and USA Judo can conduct local and regional referee certification. But when it gets to national, you have to go through USA Judo. If all you have is like a USJF membership card, you can't be a national referee. You have to also be a member of USA Judo. And then you have to meet all the other criteria. Current and national has levels within it. And then in the blue is the continental level, and then the international level, which we will not discuss because that's above our the topic today. What we are interested in are these 4, and also understand, as I said, that every state is different. There are some states that just have 2 levels, local and just regional. They don't break up regional 1, 2, and 3. So in your state, you may only have local and regional. I know there's one state that just has one level, regional. That's it. So every state's a little bit different. Some of them require written exams, some don't, and some have the price changes for each area you go to. Let's see if I have. We'll see that a little later. All right, who's authorized to conduct the local and regional referee certification? Generally, the main rule is that examiners must be current national referee or higher. Then they can conduct the local or regional examination. Now, every state is different. If you have a state that's controlled by Yudanshikai through JF, then their referee certification committee or referee training committee or whatever it's called sets the rules. They'll say, okay, this event is an examination site, and they'll pick 2 or 3 people to be examiners or whatever. Some big states I know, like, I don't know if they still do it, but in Texas, for instance, it's so huge that that they had the rule that any national referee, as long as you just inform them you're going to run a local or regional exam, you could run it at a sanctioned tournament. So everybody is different. Some areas, the state refereeing commission will conduct the evaluation and examination process, and others will let any national referee conduct a referee examination. USJA allows any of the above to conduct local and regional referee certification. And as I said, USJF has their own rules. Each Yudanshikai might have different rules. Okay, who is authorized also is each state referee commission, the USA Judo state governing body, that's what SQB is, has different rules also, because national doesn't set these rules. Some might determine that exams must be assigned, and 2 examiners. We went through all this. And however, each organization may conduct their own certification program without the interference of other organizations. So the USA Judo can't tell USJF or USJA how to run their local regional program. That's their responsibility. And understand that if you do get like a USJA regional certification, 1, 2, 3, or whatever, or you get your certification through USJF, that when you go to take your national exam, the national examiner, whoever's doing the paperwork, will that will be fine, because you have to be a regional for 1 year before you take your national, and either JA or JF certification is accepted. So there's a reciprocity between that process. Next is during referee examinations, the referee must referee the entire tournament. If you're going to be committed to being a referee, then we expect you to be there the whole time. There's no allowance to arriving late. This shows a lack of respect, lack of punctuality. There's no allowances for leaving early. This shows a lack of respect and lack of punctuality. Now, as I said, you have to do the entire event, because we've had people try to, say, well, I'm in Shiai, or I'm going to do veterans, or I'm in kata. You say, well, you can't do that. If you're going to take the examination, you're going to do the examination. Now, later on, like, once you get your local or regional or even like national test, then we do make allowances. If you want to do masters in the morning, or not veterans, I should say, or CI, and then you just, when you're finished, you get your trophy, you put your referee suit on, you get out there and finish the day off refereeing. That's fine. But initially, it's generally not accepted in most areas. Now, some may allow it. That's up to them. You have to do. And once you've been certified and have worked several tournaments, allowance can be made. I keep speaking before the slide comes up, but we will make allowances. We want you to be happy, but we also need you to get involved with refereeing, because we need referees. All right. Now, definitely, if you're going to be certified to local or regional, you must be a current member of a national judo organization, whether it's USJA, USJF, USA Judo or the American Traditional Jiu-Jitsu Association, which has a judo component to it. And they're recognized as a Group A member of USA Judo, like the JF and the JA are. All right. The other thing I found out was that if you're over 18, then you need a background check every 2 years. You need to take the Safe Sport course and the Heads Up Concussion course. Then, all right, a range of people that generally take the local and regional level or regional 1, 2, 3 referee certification is very interesting. Over the years, I've certified people from 15 years of age to 80 years of age. I've actually certified 80-year-old guys that they did fine. They were out there. Some can't, some don't move well. Some, they're right on it. They're very good. So and also, let me tell you, for instance, some Yudanchikai, like I know Nanka, which is LA, Los Angeles area, they'll certify local referees down to, I think, 13 or 14 years old. And I think Hudson also, which is the New York, New Jersey area, they certify to 14, I think, for local. I read that somewhere. So again, I'm saying that every area has a little bit of different rules on that. Now, also, as far as rank goes, they could be from, in some areas, the local level referee, one of the prerequisites, they might require some belt rank. But in many areas, they don't require any belt rank for local and regional referee. So parents can get involved in this if they've been watching their kid long enough. It does help, though, obviously, if you've done judo, been on the mat and felt it, that you'll be a better referee generally. But I've had parents who didn't do who didn't do judo, but their kid's been in it for 10 years. They kind of know the rules, and if they read up on it, they make a good transition. Now, they would never be able to be national referees because you must be a shodan to be a national referee. But I've also had Shichidan, 7th dans. That's the highest that I've certified to, like regional referee. So everybody's different. The ages are different. The levels of judo are different. And now some of the people that we get may have been certified as referees in the past. They could have been national referees 20 years ago and decided to let it lapse and went into coaching full time, and then decided, okay, I'm going to come back. And that, their skills will be better than a brand new person who's just got into refereeing. And they generally quickly pass, no problem. And unlike rank, which generally never expires, referee certification does expire, because if you don't practice it, you'll lose the skill. And one of the things we want to do as organizations is to have the best we can on the mat as referees to conduct the matches. All right. The certification fees are, again, all varied. USJA is a $30 fee. The state governing body fee is from free to $45, depending on what area of the country you're in. Now, with the $45 one, I know they actually give you a printed out version of the SOR. They give you the patch. There's a patch. USA Judo has a patch for local and regional referee. And then, most states have a fee from $10 to $20, and you don't get a patch. That helps defray the cost of a written examination and so any of the paperwork or handouts and things like that. So be aware there is a fee. And the USJF fee, again, the Yudanchikai's fee vary. Maybe they'll give it to you free, or they up to whatever amount. Now let's just quickly look at the application form. The USJA application form is on their website. And as you can see, it's just basically the front of it's just basic information. And then on the bottom of the front is the answer key and for the written exam. And you're supposed to blacken out the correct answer. And generally, they will lay an overlay over it with holes cut into it. So if they see it black, then you got that one. But if they can see the letter, they'll put a little red marker on that. That's the one that's wrong. And if you have time during a written examination, during the process, we encourage the examiners to share the exam In other words, to give them the exam and answer sheet back so they can look at the question they got wrong to figure out why they got it wrong. Sometimes it's just they didn't read it careful enough, and in other cases they didn't understand the concept that time. But it's a good learning experience. We want everything to be a learning experience. On the back of the form, there's for the evaluator examiners, there's slots here that for every match they do where you can write in notes about the mistakes they make or the good things they do. And then we'll go through. Generally, there are 7 to 12 different categories. Recently, the USA Judo has we've lessened the number of categories and combined a few. So I think there are 7 now, big ones. The other thing, if you go through the Connecticut or from any state governing body, you have their form, and it's very similar to the JA form. And again, it could be like the second box of certification 4. There could be just 2 things, local and regional. That's fine. There's an answer key, a little administration key, and then the back of the thing has where notes can be taken to decide that they pass the evaluation or not. And now let's look at the first thing you do when you generally go into the tournament, evaluation tournament, is the organized group will announce that there's a written exam and that the candidates should be there an hour before the main meeting. And then that's when they'll give you the form to fill out. You'll pay the fees. They'll check your credentials. Now you don't have to have the background check and safe sport and concussion before you even take the exam. You can go pay the fee. Make sure the one thing you have to be is a current member of whatever organization you're certifying for. And then you can take the exam. And then after, you have to get those 3 things before you'll be issued a certificate. So be aware of that. So let's look at the written exam is given generally in the beginning of the tournament. It takes, the one I give takes about an hour for most people. And the written exam generally, the ones that I've been given, and I've distributed to many states, the referee evaluators in those states, or the person who runs the program or the committee, need a written exam, and I have provided it for the last 30, 40 years. Some areas don't have exams at all, and some states have shorter exams. Anyways, generally the one I have is a 50-question multiple choice. It takes most candidates about an hour to complete, in my experience, and all ages from 15 up. They if they can, it's not that complex of an exam, but it is kind of thorough. I bring your own pen and pencil that shows you're prepared. Candidates generally are separated in a room, if venue permitting. Sometimes we have to go, like combat style and take the exam in the bleachers someplace, shoo the people away, and they're sitting in the bleachers taking this. In most of the venues I go to, we do have a room we can go into in the back where it's somewhat quiet. It is a closed book exam generally, because you need to know if you're on the mat, you can't, if something hits the fan, you can't go, Monte, just a minute, let me pull the rule book out and see what I got to do here. You don't do that. That's not allowed. Plus, also, at least with the radios, the head referee on that, we call a mat chief, can call out to you on the radio so you can fix a problem quickly, because there's that one-way communication. All right, you may ask questions by raising your hand during the exam. If the question's confusing, the moderator will either walk over or have you come up, and you can ask your question. And most of them, if the moderator can provide some guidance, they will. But in some instances, I've been asked, basically I was asked what the answer to the question is. I'm sorry, I can't help you there. So be aware of that. And also, we're not giving these exams. We want the exams so that we can see the things we won't see you do on the mat. So generally, the exams cover things that are generally don't happen every tournament or every match. But we're doing this to just check what you understand. We're not trying to prevent you to become a referee. We want you to be a referee. So if you have difficulty, if you have dyslexia, or you have a language problem in test taking, or some people just have a fear of it, then accommodations may be provided when time and circumstances allow. I have on occasion had to read questions out to people to see if they understood the principles of the question. Or I had some, guy, a Russian guy, had to, wanted to take the exam, and there was someone who spoke Russian and English, and he helped translate and work through the questions. So we want to do what we can to get you through that part of it. And next is the written exam instructions. Generally, don't make any marks on the actual written exam, because we keep using those. And the evaluators are told to secure those exams. No one can keep those exams. Once they go out, they got to come back. If they don't come back, you don't pass. And then you do your answer on the answer sheet, which is on the application form. And you completely, and you blacken out the letter so that when they put the overlay template, they can see that you marked it. If you make an area error, then we ask you to just draw an X through it and then circle or blacken out the more correct the one you choose second. For each question in the exam, I'll give you a few examples of in a moment. There may be more than one possible correct answer. However, out of those correct possible answers, there's one that is the best answer, and that's the correct answer. That's the answer we want you to pick. All right. After you finish the examination, and be sure, just an examination trick is, if you get to a question that you need to think about, it's recommended you skip that and go finish them all. But be sure at the end, you go back and you look, if you haven't filled in the black spot on one of the questions, is to go back to that question at the end and spend some time on it to figure out what the correct answer is. That's a little test-taking trick. And then, of course, good luck to you. And at the end, when you finish taking the exam, you bring the examination back and the answer key application form back, and then you leave the room. Or the examiner will correct it right there, give you the answer sheet back, or the application back. That way you can check the ones you got wrong. And if there's time, sometimes the tournaments you just don't have the time, but it's the better to let them review the questions so they learn from it. Now let's look at some sample questions that may be on this exam. Here we go. How many Shido penalties will add up to a Han Sokomake? It's a very basic question, even for new referees. And what is the answer? Oh, okay. Let's see. Most of you should have picked 3. And that is the correct answer. It used to be 4, maybe 10 years ago, but it went down to 3. And then we can make reference that, from Article 18, Paragraph 5, there's a line in there that explains the whole process. It also may be referred to in other parts of the refereeing rules. But understand, though, also that out of those 50 questions, there may be experience questions. They're not found in the rules book, the answer. It's more a custom. It's the way we're doing it. Like one of the questions that it seems to be on every clinic or every exam is, when do you look at the scoreboard to be sure that the score you called is put up on the board? And the general answer is 5 seconds, or at the most convenient time. Because if you look up, a lot of new referees have a habit of, when they call a wazari or whatever, they're looking at the board and not looking at the players. Well, the people at the board have got to press buttons to get it up there, or hang cars, or do, if it's a manual board, you got to give them time to figure out how to put it up there. So you don't look up right away. You keep your eyes on the players. And then when you're moving around and they're within, the players are in the view and you can see the board, then you look up and this blue should have a wazari. Oh, it's up there. Good. You've checked. Everything's taken care of. 5 seconds. The other thing too, though, is you got to call it when there's a break in the action. You can't check the board if it's going crazy. You got to concentrate on the players. So this question is kind of an easy question. Now, some of these others are not that easy. Responsibility to see that the scores and penalties are announced are properly reflected on the scoreboard belongs to the referee and judges, closest judges to the scoreboard, referee and recorder, or the referee. Well, it's almost like every single one of those answers is correct. However, from a refereeing standpoint, since that's what we're talking about, is that the best answer as far as the referees are concerned are the referee and judges, because they're running the match. So all three of them have a responsibility to be sure that the score goes up. Sometimes the referee will call a Wazarian and forget to look at the board, what new referees can do. And that's where the judges need to see the board and see if there's a mistake. They can call on the radio and tell the referee, oh, the Wazari didn't go up for blue. And that is taken care of. And the scoreboard operator, the recorder on answer C, that's the person generally running the scoreboard. They work for you, the referee. Not that they're being paid anything, but they're just helping. So they're not as responsible as the referee is. And let's see, the proper answer is, and there's a line in the rules that goes through covering this. Another question is, when the blue contestant steps outside the contest area with 1 foot while no attack is taking place, what should the referee do? And if the contestant steps immediately back in, the action is allowed to continue. Call mate, have the contestants go to their start positions and give Shido to the blue contestant for stepping outside. C, if the contestant steps out with 1 foot and then immediately attacks and allow the action to continue. Or D, A, B, and C are correct. Well, in fact, the people with us that have years and years of experience know that D is the correct answer. All of them are correct. And this Article 18.6, paragraph 2 goes through exactly what the rule is. Next is question 4. At the end of the contest, when the time signal is given, the referee shall announce what? So when the horn goes off, what does the referee say? Well, choice A is sono mama. Choice B is mate, then sorry made. Choice C is sorry made, and D is mate. This is kind of a simple question. This is a first level order question. And the correct answer is C. In the case, if you generally don't say mate, and if the horn sounds, you don't say mate, you just say sorry made. There's no hand gesture. So please be aware of that. Now, sometimes what will happen is if the players are attacking each other and you want to stop the action, you might say mate, and then the horn sounds. Then you said mate to stop the action, but then you say sorry mate. So the two words are next to each other, but they're not supposed to be said together when just the horn sounds and it's over. And some people I see people say mate, sorry mate, both of them, when they shouldn't be using the mate. Mate is only to stop the action. Sorry mate means that is all. It's over. And remember this too, please. As a referee, you'll learn that, and players, if you're coaches, do not let your players stop fighting if they hear the horn. Always be vigilant and do not relax, because you get slammed and get hurt. So the players aren't supposed to be listening for the horn. The referee's listening for the audible. And then when the referee says sorry made, that's when the players can relax. And the fifth example is during an ose komi. I can't read it. You can read the question, what should the referee do? And we have called sono mama, demonstrate the violation. Then while pointing to Tori, announce Shido. Then announce Yoshi to continue the contest. Then call Sonomama, consult with the judges on Mate. This one is more complex question, is a little larger, a lot of verbiage. But basically, then you call Mate and have the contestants stand at their starting positions, demonstrate the violation, point to Tori and announce Shido, give the appropriate score for the Osekomi, then restart the contest. And D, while the action continues, you can give the penalty, demonstrate the penalty on the run, and then point to the Tori and announce Shido. And that's while they're doing Osekomi. You don't want to call Mate if there's an advantage. And then A and B are correct depending upon the situation. Well, this question specifically is talking about when you give Tori the penalty. And in the rules, it specifically states if you give Tori the penalty, you should announce Mate and take that hold down away from them. And then when they get up, then you give them also a Shido for the violation. But also you give them the partial Osekomi. Let me see if it's a 10 or 11 second hold, when the penalty was done, then they get the Wazari also. Okay, and the correct answer here would be C, and that's covered in the rules. You call Mate. So that's just an example of some of the questions you might see on a written examination. General scoring scale is local, regional 1, 2, and 3, and regional generally taking the exam. We give the same exam to local and regional, or I do, and the local must reach at least a 64, so that you're allowed to get 18 wrong. And the regional 1 can get 70%, and that's 15 wrong. That's a pretty good amount of mistakes you can make. And regional 2 gets about 13 incorrect, and regional 3 can get up to 10 correct. And generally the states that have just one level regional, they generally use a 74% as the passing grade. And again, every state is different, so be prepared for that. Now, the practical evaluation process. After you've taken that written exam, you're going to head out on the mat. You're going to be assigned a mat. And on the mat, there'll be a mat chief who will take care. He'll be the senior guy that will help make sure everything goes the right way. He'll radio into you. And when you referee, as you know, you'll have 2 judges sitting at the table. They'll also, if they agree that what you called was not correct, then they'll call you and let you know what the correct way to go is. And then the mat chief is supposed to oversee them, make sure what they tell you is correct. And if they do tell you something wrong, mat chief will jump in and fix it. And they have the ultimate authority. Actually, the ultimate authority is the chief referee, where he can call in a correction across the mat if he wants to. So we just want to be sure every match is fair and that the right player wins. All right. And what we do is, the first point is the candidates will be distributed among the more qualified referees in order to provide a buffer for the alleviation of any errant judgments. And the candidates will be observed generally, preferably for a minimum at least 12 contests as a referee and 12 as a judge, and more contests would be desirable. We need to see you as many environments and many situations as possible, but also the different ages, from all the way from 6 years old to the Shia, like the black belt. Local, not necessarily in regional 1, but regional 2, regional 3, you got to start being able to handle the brown and black belt type matches. All right, practical evaluation, mat chief, if national and above, will also help to provide feedback to each candidate, so the evaluation is an educationally enriching experience. It's no good just to take, it's not like taking the bar or medical exams where you go in, you take the exam and no one talks to you. At least when you get on the mat here, we want this to be a learning experience. So if you may not pass, you'll still learn a lot of things, because the mat chief's providing you feedback. Also, the other national referees who are just there, your peers can provide you with feedback, but also the examiner can provide you feedback. Every time you come off the mat, if there's an examiner on the mat, be sure to go over and politely ask, please, do you have anything, any feedback. And then if they do, they might say, oh, good job this time. That's fine. But if they have feedback, then please go to them and then go to the mat chief. Be very enthusiastic about wanting feedback. Those are the people that impress us as evaluators. They really want to learn refereeing. The candidate is expected to inquire after each round to go to the evaluator and get feedback. I just beat myself to it again. All right, there are two ways to take the examination. If you're in an enriched referee environment, a good, where the tournaments are big, the tournament judo is good, they have plenty of referees, then you will grow up in that environment. And what happens is the more tournaments you go to that you're uncertified at, the chief referee and the others on the commission, their local commission, will be seeing you. And when they feel you're ready, then they'll suggest, okay, next tournament, we have an examination, you should go for it. They'll just almost like promotions. You're ready, you should go in for your next promotion. However, in some areas, the environment is unenriched, and that just means there are no referees. Referee examiners are national referees in this particular state, and you end up having to go to another state tournament. Like you're in Minnesota, you're going to go to Iowa or whatever to take, because that's where the examiner, the national referee is. That's almost, it's not a challenge, but it's just that referee's never seen you work before. So if they see you cold, in those cases, the chances of being certified are a little less. If you're within a enriched environment, generally when the commission tells you you're ready, you generally pass. I've failed in 40 years. I've failed for local and regional, very few people, because I saw them for 10 to 15 tournaments before they even took the examination. So we worked on them, we mentored them, we built them up. And then when I thought they were ready, they seemed to understand things. Okay, you're ready, you should take the exam. But in other areas, if they're coming at you like challenging the examination, the failure rate is higher. But if the guy is ready and he believes he can do it, then fine, then they can pass it. However, one must choose to challenge the examination, and that is showing up without having been previously mentored or taking a written or practical exam. If one believes they're ready, they should take the exam as long as the other prerequisites are met. And generally this occurs when candidates travel to another state, as I just mentioned, or there's no national in their area. We're trying to work out, it's going to be a while, is to possibly maybe someday have a national referee sit in on this like a Zoom thing, have a camera set up at a tournament, and anybody who's candidate will take the written examination like online or something like that, and then go to then the referee, national guy who's in Oklahoma can watch someone wherever, Mississippi, at a tournament, and if the camera's on them, they can see how they perform, and do it virtually. And we're seeing you under combat conditions at a tournament, so that's a good evaluation experience, and we can see you under pressure, and then you can be certified that way. That's in the future for those areas that don't have national referees to conduct these evaluations. Now, the evaluation categories as an evaluator we look at is just generally is appearance, voice, and posture. And appearance is how your jacket is cut, make sure your button's buttoned all the time, your hair's nice, your everything, just normal human, being a gentleman and a gentlewoman, lady. Voice, make sure you have a good voice that's loud enough to be heard. We don't want you, like in the old days, we used to scream. We were told, if you have 6 mat areas, if you're on mat 1 on one end of the gymnasium, and you said, Hajime, the people sitting in the top row of the bleachers at mat 6 on the other side, 300 feet away, should be able to hear you. But that's not the way now. Your voice, when you say Hajime, should be loud enough so the players can hear you, the judges can hear you, and the mat and the table people can hear you. So you don't have to be that loud, but you can't be quiet either. There's some higher level referees that, just say, Hajime, like little low voice. then the referees can't hear you. And that creates more problems, especially if you call mate and they don't stop and they can get hurt that way. The other thing we're looking for is your posture. If your head's over your hips when you're moving and your head doesn't sway. Now I'm getting into advanced stuff now, is when I see a referee where their head's going like this when they're walking, it doesn't look like a judo guy. Judo guys, when they're moving, their heads stay right over their hips, because once your head goes off your hip, you're vulnerable to be thrown in that direction. So the referee should look like judo people when they move on the mat. And that's another whole category which we don't have time for today, but because we don't want the person, if you're a player, when you get into referee, you can't really move around the mat like a player. It doesn't look good. You have to look, dignified and walk with authority and presence. The next is position and mobility. If you read the referee manual, the second item I said in the beginning, it tells you where to stand. You generally in tachi-shise or standing positions, you want to be about 10 feet away from the athletes. But then you can adjust that. If you're a tall referee, you may need to step back a further. Or if you're dealing with 6-year-olds, you can get a little closer, maybe 9 feet, where they won't hit you. But 10 feet's the average. And in Newas, it's like 5 or 6 feet. Just you want to be close enough to see the action, but you don't want to be close enough where when they do an escape, they don't kick you or run you over. The other thing is mobility, how you move on the mat. And that's covered in the referee manual also, at least the basics of it. Next is procedures, how you handle changed calls, or how you do your wazari gesture, how do you do the penalty process, how you do your gestures. Your gestures should be smooth and calm and held for 3 seconds each. When as far as advanced refereeing is concerned, one of the things when I say that when you do your wazari nippon gesture, your osekomi gesture, or your penalty gestures, you must not emotionally invest them. What I mean is sometimes you see big throw and the referee goes, ippon! Like he's excited. Referees can't be excited like that. It's not professional. Now, as a local guy, okay, we'll let you go. But as you move up the ladder, you must be a little more controlled and professional, have a professional and calm presence. And then the other thing is your ability to observe things. If the belt, when they come out on the mat, their gi is folded right over left instead of left over right, little things. Or they have a watch or a ring on, or a necklace, or their t-shirt. The girls have a t-shirt with a big logo on it. Some referees spot it right away. Other referees don't notice it until 10 seconds, 15, 20 seconds into the match. Then they have to stop it and remove whatever it is. So these are the categories we're looking at, and we write notes about. The other thing is authority. How you present yourself, whether you're in control or you look like you're scared. You give wishy-washy responses. Your wazaris are like tentative, and instead of saying osekomi, you go osekomi, like it's a question. And the determination is how quick you make your decision. You aren't there itching your head and saying, I don't know about that. Or you take time to make your decision. Now, as a local referee, that can happen. And we make allowances for that. But as you move up the ladder, we want to get rid of that. When a person falls and lands, you need to call a score right away. And when there's a hold down, you need to call it right away. That just takes time and training and practice and feedback. And the most important category of the 7 is appreciation or judgment. Do you understand the principles of what a wazari, the difference between no score and wazari and ippon, and what osekomi is and what toketa is, and so forth, and when to give penalties and how to give penalties, and lastly is probably the most dangerous thing is the use of the word mate. It's funny, you don't think about it, but it is the most dangerous word in refereeing, because if you call wazari, the judges can change the wazari to ippon. But if you call a mate in the middle of a choke or an arm lock or in the middle of a beautiful throw, the judges, there's a tough time fixing those kind of mistakes. So you have to be very careful when you apply the word mate in a contest. The sixth category is your application of penalties. And then the seventh category is your teamwork, how you work with your judges, with the table official, the technical officials, which is the timekeeper and the recorder and so forth. So those are the categories that, as evaluators, we write notes about that will determine whether you pass or don't pass. The appearance and voice covers dress, proper fitted uniform, jacket button, your hair is neat, as I mentioned, cleanliness, shirt tucked in, tie. You know, if you're going to wear polo shirts, make sure they're tucked in, like chief referees, if there are any there. That looks terrible when they're out. No wrinkles. Posture, your head over the hips, as I've mentioned. When you bend over properly, so you don't look like you're putting your hands on your knees. Or we had one referee that would watch groundwork. He'd go into a full squat position. He thought he was in sumo. He fixed. I told him it doesn't look good, and he fixed it. Voice, make sure you're loud enough. We covered this. That so that the players can hear you when you say mate or whatever score you give. The table official, the technical officials, the timekeeper and the recorder can hear you, and the judges can hear you, and the jury guy or the matchee. Generally, they're all sitting at the same table. In some environments, they might have one table on one side for the table that's got the timekeeper and everything, and in back of you might be the referees, or the other way around. So be aware of that, and then properly pronounce the words so they sound like some close to what the Japanese word is. And posture, we talked about head over the hips, shoulders back but relaxed, head level, so your chin. I mean, most referees we don't discuss. You know, if you're not making a mistake, we don't talk about it. But there's some referees that go out there and they're holding their chin up, or their chin's down here, and they're looking out of their eyes, and it just looks unusual. And we just make a mention, and most people can fix a little mistake like that pretty quickly. Make sure your arms are to the sides and relaxed. A referee should never have their hands on their hips or fold their arms. It looks arrogant. You know, in dojos, I know most coaches probably do that. We do. But on the mat, you must have your arms to your side so you look humble and relaxed and professional. And then hang your hands naturally from the arms. So I can tell someone's nervous if their hands stiffen. Generally, your hand's got a little cup to it naturally. And all of a sudden, if I start seeing someone stiffen their hand, I write in the note, he's nervous. When I come off the mat, it says, you stiffen your hand, you're nervous. Well, I'm not nervous. Your body begs to differ. Maybe you consciously aren't aware of it, but there was some stress that made your body, this what micro expressions. And we see that as referee evaluators. We can tell whether you're tense or relaxed by just simple things, how your hand is being held, right, and so forth. And there are a lot of other things. Position and mobility we talked about, and I talked about in Tachi Shisei, which a lot of you might call it Tachi Waza, but 2 years ago at the IJF conference, the head of the Kodokan went through and back. Actually, I thought it, most people thought it was like a judo lesson. It wasn't. It was, he's tired of listening to us Americans and other people using Tachi Waza, which is the wrong word to use if players are standing. It's Tachi Shisei. Tachi Waza is the throw. But if you're standing, the proper name, if you want to use the English from standing. But if you're going to use the Japanese, it's Tachi Shisei, it's standing position, standing body. And when you use, like they're in groundwork, we say Newa. They're not in it. If they're in Kesagatami is Newaza. Katahajime is a technique or a Newaza, ground technique. But just guard position is not Newaza. They're on the ground, so it's Nichisei. In any event, position should be about 10 feet away, and as again adjust count for the size of the contestants and the size of the referee, or the height of the referee, so you get the best view. And stand where you can see the landing, and that's dealing with positioning. And do not block the sight lines. This is something you'll learn eventually. In the beginning, you don't worry about it, but eventually, at least national level, you got to know not to block the judge's view, not to block the chief referee's view, and not to block the care cameras, which is that video playback system that you can go to if you make a mistake and the people at the table want to review it. Then they look at the video to see, and they can look at it in slow motion to see if you made a mistake, if they're not sure right away. And so you don't want to block the camera, you won't see the playback. But that's something you get better at as the years go by. Next is position. In Nishise is about 5 to 6 feet, as I mentioned. If you're too far away, you can't see it, but you want to be far enough away so you don't get hit when they're kicking around or trying to escape, and they're close enough to see everything you need to see. Another position is position to see everything. There's a general overview. If you read the referee manual, the judo referee manual that's mentioned, that I wrote, it goes through some basic positioning things. And osekomi, generally you always tell them to stand at the head so you can see. You're in kesagatami, you want to see their face to make sure no one's choking anything, that the hands aren't doing anything wrong. But also when you're standing at the head, you got to look at the legs, because the uke, or the person being held, might hang a leg over and try to scissors it or whatever to break the hold. So you need to watch that. But the big thing is to be at the face. And also in the referee manuals, it's outlined, is that you stand at the head to see the most of what's going on. And for each hold down, that's a different place. And for each shimiwaza, you also need to see the face to make sure that the uke is not choking across the chin or actual face and so forth. You also need to see the face when you get more into it, as far as when people are choked out, to be able to see the eyes. And you'll learn that in your local clinics, is about, what are you looking for with the eyes? You're looking for the hands and the feet to go limp and so forth. That's something you will learn in your local area, your clinics run by your national or higher referees. Also, you want to see in kensetsu be in the right place so you can see the tap out, if there is one, when the person taps out. And then the other thing is about position is generally is to stay inside the contest area, and absolutely, unless absolutely necessary. There's some newaza situations where both players may be facing out, where the referee will have to go into the safety area to see the faces, to be in the best position to observe the nishise that's going on. Or in that, generally, if they're going to go out, there's probably a newaza technique being applied. Alrighty, a moment to pause. And this is these are some of the pictures from the referee manual. Now, I'm not much of an artist. We got to find an artist and clean this up. But basically, you can see that here they're in kesagatami, if you can imagine that. And ideally, if you're standing here with the 6 feet away, you have the best view of here. And these off to the side are okay. But generally, if we see you refereeing from behind or way back here at the uke's feet, we'll make a note that, in your evaluation, that you're in the wrong position to watch newaza. You don't understand where to be. And if you read the referee manual, the judo referee manual, that's outlined there. Same with here, you have Yoko Shiogatami here. It's interesting. Sorry about that. You have the Yoko Shiogatami. It tells you where the ideal position is. The Haraka Jime, where to stand to see that. And that's from, let's say, the uke's face down and the tori's on top, choking with Haraka Jime and the naked choke. And then when they're doing Jujigatami, the ideal positions to see, generally they slap the ground where the circle is, or in some cases they'll reach up and tap the tori's arms that are taking the arm off, and they'll give up that way. And so that this is just some basic positioning as you begin to referee. And this generally in the beginning, you'll be conscious of this positioning, but as you get better and better and better, it's amazing. People just naturally are there. And that just shows you ingrain it so it becomes almost subconscious. You don't even know you're doing it. You're there and you're in good position. But that takes a lot of training. All right. Mobility, move calmly and steady tempo. Don't be like you're, like nervous and jumpy and fidgety. That's comes across as you're scared and you don't know what you're doing. So you need to be quick, move smoothly around like a judo person, balance with the head over the hips. The feet move over the mat, not like walking in mud. You don't want to be lifting your feet up so it looks awkward. You don't want to lift your feet up too high. And as you get at a higher level, we'll talk more about how you slide your feet or whatever. It's a little too advanced in the beginning. But the big thing is just move around. If in most cases, people don't have problems with stuff like this, so we don't say anything. You don't have to worry. Maybe you're naturally very good at moving around. You look professional. It's almost like the best referees almost look like they're floating out there. And it's not awkward. And it just takes years of training. And you don't want to be swaying side to side, as I said, because that's not judo-like when you walk. Then you have to have procedures and gestures, proper application of the rules, competitor bow protocol, make sure you understand that completely, how to call medical, radio communications program, protocol where you want to be brief but concise and always mention the color. If you want to give blue a Shido for 2 hands on the same side or whatever, then say that on the radio. And your local area referee leaders will go through all this. Procedure protocol, as again, you change how to change scores from Ippon to Wazari or Wazari to no score, etc. When the judges ask you to change it, erasing scores when the judges call or match chief overrides, giving scores or penalties when judges radio into the referee, and referees scene coaching. This is another thing. Even from the beginning, if you're going to be a referee, you're a referee. You can't be a coach also. Now, in event, I understand a lot of referees actually have their own clubs. They're the chief. They're the head instructor of the club. And so they end up doing coaching, but you've got to be careful that if you're going to talk to your players, you need to do it out of sight of everybody. I'm not saying not talk to them, but go in a hallway or in a corner somewhere no one can see you when you talk to them. It's no good. I've seen this where some referee is on the mat, he's sitting in a chair or he's sitting on off duty and he's got his referee uniform on and he's screaming like a coach to his player. You can't do that. That looks very, very bad. So we look for little things like that. Gestures. Do you do your signals the right way? Smooth the knife hand. Make sure. Just one thing I hope you start off right is make sure your fingers are together and the thumb is just tucked to the inside. A lot of people might have that thumb out or they spread their fingers. It looks terrible. This is the way. So the Wazari's like this, the Mate's like this, the wind gesture, the hand is this way. A lot of gestures, the hand's like this. Now, the stiffness when you do the gestures, fine. But when you're just standing, your hands are hanging from your side. You don't think about this. I mean, your hand will naturally be relaxed. If I see the stiff hand on the side, as I mentioned, then I'll know you're nervous. Naturally, you should not be mechanical or emotionally invested, as I mentioned. You must look natural and smooth out there and an even tempo. Make sure you do the gestures properly and not sloppy. And again, please try to hold them for 3 seconds so everybody in the room can see them. Some referees are so fast, they shoot it out. They go, Wazari, it's out for a quarter of a second. Even the people at the table go, what? It's so fast. So please, upon gesture, and then we have the Wazari's at the shoulder height, not above the shoulder. And then the osekomi, be sure when you point, your fingers should go like to the heart of the tori. I see people doing osekomi where it looks, or where their fingers are pointing out into the crowd in the stands. I don't understand that. Make sure your fingers are pointing down and almost like if you put a string from the tips of their fingers to the heart of tori, the center mass of tori. That's how osekomi is supposed to be done. And then the toketa, you turn your hand sideways and wave it 2 or 3 times while you're saying the command. and then the wind gesture. These are the most common, of course, and then the standard mate, which is at shoulder height, palm flat, and that's done to the table, the timekeeper's table. And those are just the, and then as you know, probably there are many more gestures that you have to pick up. Now, observation is what you're looking for. Is a judo gi fits right. You're looking for all the measurements. Jewelry, make sure they don't have any jewelry on. Hair ties, there's no metal clips in them. Left lapel over right. There's a lot of things to think about. Girls have their white t-shirt on, and the score, if there are scoreboard mistakes, you pick them up right away. And this is just an overview of the basics of the judo gi, and we've covered this previously in the rule review. And there's the sokuteki thing, that the measuring device. And then everything's in the rules, it's all centimeters. So for the US, you got to learn a bit about the metric system. So 4 to 6 inches is 10 to 15, 8 to 12 for the belt hang, and 2 inches at the ankle. And to make sure that the new rules, the way they're written is basically the skirt of the jacket needs to cover the entire buttocks. And generally, if the player's arms are rested to their side, if the edge of the bottom of the skirt comes to that first knuckle, then the jacket is long enough. Some players come out with these mini skirt jackets. That jacket needs to be changed. Then you have authority and presence, and confident appearance, and immediate response to all situations, and you don't act confused, and you have a good rhythm. You're not getting excited and move faster when things start hitting the fan. And then have that calmness about you in refereeing. Now, again, locally, you're going to have that. Don't worry about it. The more you get on the mat, the calmer you get. The more you know the rules, the more comfortable in the environment you get. It gets easier and easier and easier. All right, and there's a look at the judges before a call. This is authority. If you look at the judges before a call, that's telling everybody in the room you don't know the answer, and you're like, what is it? That's not good. You have to come across as confident. And looking at the judges after call also shows a lack of confidence. It's like you're looking at them saying, how'd I do? You don't need them. When you're out there refereeing, you're in charge. You're supposed to know the rules. And situational awareness. You must be aware of your entire environment. If there are kids sitting on the edge of the mat too close, you need to move them back. Coaches you need to move them back. Just be aware if there's a hole in the mat, or the tatami are separating, you need to see that stuff. Determination or conviction is just, you got to be assured and non-hesitant when calling scores, wasekomi, penalties, and mate. That can't not be wishy-washy. Judges also must show determination on all the calls. Sometimes as an evaluator, I'm sitting at the table and something hits, the referee calls something. One judge goes, the referee calls Rosario, let's say for blue. One judge says, no, that's Ippon. And the other judge goes, well, I don't know. It could be. You can't be a referee, judge, or referee if you're that wishy-washy. You need to say, if the one judge says, no, that's Ippon, and you should say, I agree with the referee, or I agree with you. Let's call them and change to Ippon. You shouldn't be wishy-washy. And again, locally, as you're learning, you might be, but you'll get rid of that as time goes by. It'll go away. And again, appreciation, most important category. Make sure that the score meets all the functions or components, which is control. That's number one and most important, that the Tory has control when they throw. The second is what hits the mat. The third is the force of the landing. And the fourth is the speed of the landing. And then hold downs, there are several categories. Make sure the player's controlled on the back. They have control. That is being done from the Kesashi or Ura position. And there are 4 or 5 other categories. You need to read the refereeing rules in the SOR. And then this is not IJF or anything. This is my own concept. Is the score spectrum or continuum basically starts from over this side here where there's no score, any kind of landings. And then there's this transition point where it turns into Wazari. And then along the scale, so that you can have at the one end, like on the bottom, there you can have weak Wazari all the way up to a strong Wazari. And then there's that transition point where Wazaris turn into Ippons. And that you can have a weak Ippon and a very strong Ippon. It doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, a weak or strong Ippon to you or the scoring system doesn't matter. But in your mind, you can know that at least at these transition points is where most referees make mistakes about calling. And it takes some time to get to understand where the IJF and USA Judo are setting these transition points. And there's a drift in the interpretation of this during time. And so you need to be aware of these transition points. And then there's the two different score zones, as I mentioned, the Wazari score zone and remember the old if you've been around in judo, more than 10 years, then you'll know that we used to have the score of Yuko, and those now are lumped in with the Wazari score. So any landings on the side, which used to be Yuko, are Wazari. This is just a very basic outline of the scoring, what I call impact zones. Any landing, any part of that green area of the tori that hits the mat, the score should be Ippon. If any part of the yellow hits, then it probably should be a Wazari. If it hits directly, and even if there's massive force on the Wazari panel, it's not supposed to be Ippon if it only hits the Wazari panel. But again, if the green part of the Ippon panel or zone hits, any part of it, doesn't have to be a whole thing, if it's a whole thing is great, then no one's going to change your call because it's obvious. But if it's just the yellow that hits, then it's a Wazari. Now, in some cases, if the throw is continuous and they roll from the Wazari area across the green or Ippon area, it's an Ippon if it's a continuous roll. If there's a break in the action, if they hit on their buttocks or the red zone, which is a no score zone. Let's go through Ippon, Wazari. And then if impacts to the tops of the shoulder are no score. Exact top of the shoulder. And any impact below the belt is no score. Sometimes player do ouchigari, drop them to their buttocks, but the action is continuous all the way up the back through the Wazari zone underneath the Ippon zone and then into the Ippon zone. That score can be Ippon if the action is smooth and even and there's no break. So be aware of that. That picture's also in the referee manual. Appreciation we talked about is judgment, applying when to apply mate, and please use thoughtfully, judiciously, carefully, prudently, and wisely, because it is a dangerous word if it's applied incorrectly. And then let's just look at the penalties, just to give you an idea. Currently, there are 30 Shido penalties, prohibited acts, and 11, well, actually 11 to 13 Hatsugomake penalties. And the ones I've described indicated in blue here are probably the ones new referees need to be aware of, because the other ones are kind of rare. They don't happen that often. But you have like excessive defensive posture, false attack, non-combativity, to push a person out or to go out without any action. These are just brief synopsized things. You need to read the full rules for all the wording that's involved in these. But you'll go through this with your local referee trainers and referee educators, and they'll cover all that. Basically, we isolated there are 14 big ones. And then teamwork, your cooperation with the judges, understanding nonverbal communication. Eventually, as new referees, you don't have nonverbal communications, but you work on it as team. And then always refer to the majority of 3 judgments. If the referee decides Wazari, but the other 2 judges agree it's another score, then the referee has to change it. Now you can include the mat chief. He'll jump in and put his 2 cents in. And his word is the last word, or actually the real last word is the chief referee. All right, work closely with the timekeepers and scoreboard operators so that you're a good team, there's good camaraderie. And then as far as examination results, generally at the end of the tournament, the candidates will remain to meet with the examiner or evaluator. Each candidate will be informed of their results. If they do not pass, they will be provided with feedback to improve for the next time. If you do pass, then you generally will get, handshake and so forth, you'll get your certificate. And if your local area provides a patch, that generally is mailed to you. That defrays the cost of the examination. That's examination fee. Or if you're really tight knit and you're going to have a tournament the next week or 2 weeks or whatever, then and we know you're going to be there, then they might hand the certificate to you at the turn before, during the opening ceremony at the tournament. So that's possible. Every area handles it differently. Okay. This is just basic, like a general picture of the certificate. This is just the Connecticut Judo one through USA Judo. And there's different. The USA Judo has a generalized national one. USJA has their certificate, and so forth. And the end. Now, does anybody have any questions?
I will set it so that everyone, if you have a question, you can unmute yourself. I believe I have it locked to be able to unmute yourself. And after you ask your question, please mute yourself.
I am sorry sorry maybe at the speed of this. This is a lot of material, and I always have a bad habit of having like 3 hours of stuff trying to cram it into an hour and a half. I hope I haven't overwhelmed you. But if you have any questions, anybody, if any of the more senior guys have any comments, if they've run or conducted the local and regional, anything they've noticed, that's fine. You can jump in and put your 2 cents in. We want to hear from everybody.
I'm reading a question. Where can we see examples of penalty gestures?
If you go to the sports organization rule document and Appendix D, which is the refereeing rules, they actually have the pictures of some of the penalties, not all of them, because actually I think most of them do not have a standardized penalty gesture. It's almost like, if you're refereeing in the United States, in some instances, you might have to actually tell the player, you just did this. Most people understand stepping out, and non-combativity is like this kind of, what is it in basketball, traveling in basketball. There's 2 hands on the same side, a finger in the sleeve kind of gesture, and those basic ones. But we don't have there's some like talking back to the referee. There's no gesture for that. Or kicking them, like using kawazugake. There's no gesture. You make like you do kawazugake, and it looks awkward though. It looks terrible, but it's the only way to get the point across. Internationally, generally the referees chosen from a neutral country. The referee and judges are all neutral to the 2 players on the mat, so that everything's fair. And so that generally, unless the referee speaks a dozen languages, you don't know the language of the athletes. So everything has to be communicated in some type of gesture. But in the United States, you might, if there isn't a particular gesture for a prohibited act, that you might tell the player that you're getting a Shido for blah, 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 or whatever it is, and then point to them and give them Shido. I hope.
I actually made a comment here while we were talking to chat with Sensei Bregman and Sensei Celotto. One of the next Jim Bregman Invites You To series may be specifically giving examples of penalties where we have players on the mat and we set up a situation where the penalties are going over. We go over all of them, and that's the only topic of that Jim Bregman Invites You To series program. Thank you.
That'd be good. We have a question from Zach. You had a list of traits that were important, and his question is, which one of these traits do you believe is the most important trait?
I think as I mentioned, in the beginning and all through refereeing, the judgment or the understanding of what a score is and what is not a score, and what a hold down is, that judgment thing is the most important category. You can mess up your gestures, and you can look funny out there, but if you call the scores right, most coaches won't say anything. Just make sure if their player did the throw, they get the credit for it. And then, but if you notice the higher level referees, we're working on things that have nothing to do with the right player winning. We're looking like at appearance kind of thing. And these are like subconscious things. Most people will see a calm person who has a good posture and etiquette and everything. They say, oh, he looks good. He looks like he knows what he's doing. Some people can do that and absolutely know nothing just because they come across with that presence. So I think the number one thing is understanding the rules and judgment. As far as the characteristics of a referee are also covered in the basic referee, or it's called judo referee manual. Things like being honest. One thing I was drummed into us in the beginning and saying, in judo, is that a good referee is humble. But we've always heard that. Even when you're higher level black belts, arrogance is not part of judo. It's not supposed to be part of judo. And referees should never be arrogant. They need to be confident. It's that fine line. Generally, the arrogant referees, we don't like to see people like that. We want someone who's very confident, but also comes across as humble. And, and that's important characteristics. The other thing, obviously, for the refereeing is being open to learning. We have some referees that are closed-minded. We don't need that. We need to be able to expand your horizons, to improve and be willing to improve, accept feedback without controversy. Some people we give feedback to, they've got an excuse for everything. To be honestly, I'm old now. I don't want to hear your excuses. If I'm telling you're doing something wrong, you're doing it wrong, as far as I'm concerned. You can't have an excuse. You can have an excuse, but keep it to yourself, please. Just say, thank you very much, Sensei, and move along. And you'll learn to do that in refereeing, because one of the big problems in dealing with the higher ups is you'll go on the mat and do a job, and you'll ask one A referee or a B or a national, what'd I do? And he'll say, oh, you moved around too much and you were too close. And then you go to another A referee who's watching you, say, what'd I do? He said, well, you don't move around enough and you're too far away. And you go away and you go, oh, gee, what don't these people make up their minds? But that's the difference of opinion. A lot of this stuff is not like set in stone kind of stuff. It's feeling and judgment. We haven't had the time. We're working on setting up. I have a document called Referees Expected Behaviors, which I released a long time ago, but it hasn't been renewed in 10 years. Very complex thing. There's like 300-400 comments about little things referees can do to make themselves look better. And again, but it's so complex. Initially, it doesn't, new people shouldn't even see it. It's too complex. But as you're at the higher levels, we can fix things and make the referees look more presentable and so forth. But I think the number one thing, characteristic anyway, is knowledge, not only knowledge of the rules and knowledge of the scoring and so forth, is to go to a higher level, because there are like many levels of knowing something. There's knowing it and then comprehending it, then being able to apply it in an environment and to diversify it, use it in diverse situations. Because there was a comedian that joked about, he taught his son, Johnny, 2 + 2 is 4. Say it. 2 + 2 is 4. So when his grandpa came over, the kid that, the father said to the son, how much is 2 + 2? And he'd go, 4. Say, oh, you're smart. And then the kid would say, Daddy, what's a 4? That's the difference between knowing and comprehending. And in judo, in everything, there's a difference between that knowing and comprehending. And new guys know the rules. The more experienced begin to comprehend the rules. The even more experienced learn to be able to apply the rules during application in a hostile environment, which is a judo match. Even the referees dealing with the pressures of coach, maybe a coach yelling at him. Definitely the referees are going to yell at him when he cuts off the mat. The good ones will be nice and pat you on the back but provide feedback. But we still have, unfortunately, some referee evaluators that are a little bit too harsh. We want the refereeing experience to be a pleasant one. So we don't want to be yelling at anybody. I hope that answered that question. It was a long-winded answer.
That was good. Okay, we have one more question. Would a dark navy tie still be acceptable?
Yes, no problem. Now, I would love, I'm like Orthodox extreme. I would love to, when I look out on the mat and see everybody in black jacket, gray slacks, and the black socks and a black tie. I would love that. Everybody, like you A's and B's, stop showing off with your blue ties. But they can wear the tie. They worked hard to get that tie and that patch. That's fine. But what really irks me is like seeing guys in judo gis or out in street clothes. That, it's not good. But I completely understand in some areas you can't run the tournament without those guys helping out. So it has to happen. We really have to do it. It's just nice to see. I'm sorry. I hope not to offend any karate guys or jiu-jitsu guys, but when I've been to some of those events, you go there and they've got like eight mat areas where we're lucky if we get 3 mat areas in. They just put tape on the floor. And then the referees are in shorts and ripped T-shirts, just off the street. And when you go into a judo tournament, at least my area and most areas, you have the tatami or nice mat areas, the large mat area, all the referee. It looks professional. Looks real nice. That impresses people. I went to a judo tournament and, it was very well run and, it looked professional. The referees were very well kept and so forth. So a blue tie is fine. The dark blue tie, because in the old days, like 30 years ago, the jacket was navy blue. We wore a navy blue jacket. And then I can't remember the year they switched to the black jacket, but it was 20 plus years ago. Go ahead.
Are there any further questions?
If not, I want to thank everybody. I very much appreciate. I know it's like a small field, and I see some people here that are years as a national referee, and they have a lot of experience, and thank you for coming. I hope this helps you, if you're doing examinations in your area, good. If you do examinations and you maybe I just finished the 2021 written exam for local and regional. If you want a copy of that, I can send it to you as long as you keep it secured, because those are hard to develop. It takes a long time to fix the questions and so forth. And to those that are new at it, I hope it was helpful. I hope that you see what you have to go through from the beginning, from like new. If you're a green belt or whatever, and you want to get involved, I hope I've opened your eyes to the process. And the big thing is basically get into the flow of things, so you can see how the referees operate at a tournament. If there are no other questions, I would like to thank everybody very much for taking time out of your busy schedules to be with us this evening.
And thank you, Rick, very much for a very comprehensive and extensive explanation. Everybody have a good evening and stay well.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.